Welcome back. It's time for Your Health, and today we're talking about autism. Now, in the United States, they have a prevalence rate of 1 in every 59 children having the autism spectrum disorder. In Kenya, however, statistics have not even been gathered to find out the prevalence rate, but medical facilities are increasingly identifying cases, and now this shows an increased need for our social structures to adopt people living with autism. Now, in studio today, we have a special needs consultant, Faith Nyaboke, who's going to help us deal with, talk and delve into the needs of people living with autism, as well as beauty queens, Miss Autism for the year 2019, Peggy McJulian, as well as Miss Autism for the year 2018, Kelly Kinuthia, to my farthest to the right. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to start from the definition of autism. A lot of us do not understand this disorder, and why is it called autism spectrum disorder? What's the spectrum? Could you explain to us, Ms. Nyaboke?
Okay, autism is a spectrum because it's broad.
Yeah.
What we normally say is one's individual autism doesn't look the same as another person's individual.
So person A with autism might be completely
can never
different.
behave the same as person B. That's
Right.
why we call it a spectrum.
Yeah.
Because it's not, we cannot really pinpoint like this one individual. This is how the characteristics are supposed to exhibit itself in one individual or in a general setup.
Okay.
That's why it's a spectrum.
Yeah, so if you cannot use one as the carbon copy for somebody else, so if you suspect your kid has autism, you can't necessarily look to somebody else's kid who has it and say these are the similarities in the symptoms and therefore this is definitely autism.
Yeah, you can't. You
Okay.
can't.
Yeah.
We have the general characteristics
Right.
of the things, for example, non-verbalism, social misfits or social lack of social cues. We have communication issues, which are the most common characteristics that are exhibited in autism. But you cannot generally say that since this child doesn't have communication skills or social skills, that this is a child with autism, unless you have to go for an EEG scan, that's why we now come back to saying that autism is a neurological disorder.
Right.
It has to be, you have to check the brain setup so that to identify one with autism. You just don't look at the behavior and just be like, this child has autism. No.
Okay, right. Now, when you're looking at a particular child who's exhibiting certain symptoms, at what point does a parent feel that this is a moment that should make me go and see a specialist or a doctor? Because you have said that the symptoms are varied, they're not the same. So what would make me feel that this particular child needs a specialist to actually decipher what is going on in their mind?
Okay, first thing I normally say, a mother's intuition is never wrong.
Okay.
As a mother, you'll definitely know that there's something not right with my child. As I've said, first, you'll have to look at the communication skills of the child. They tend to be nonverbal. That's such that at the age of 2.5 years, a child is supposed to be at least having 300 words or coherent speech, but the child doesn't have the communication skills. We have the social skills. Under the social skills, you find this child is not interactive. You find this child tends to play alone. They do self-harming. In some cases, they are self-harming children. And then in some cases, these are people who are obsessive. You cannot even share their toys.
Okay.
So and then when you come to the neurological setup, you will find that even in school, they're struggling. They'll have to be struggling with one thing or the other.
Or perhaps more on the interaction side?
In the interaction side, we do not generally say that people with autism, we have high functioning autism. We have very many, like Steve Jobs. He's the greatest inventor we have now, but he has autism. We can't say that he struggled with the academic issues.
Yeah, he's pretty intelligent. So that is not a factor perhaps that can be a major indicator of a kid with autism. But then I'm told that people who grow into adulthood go through the systems and are later diagnosed with autism. I can't imagine how difficult it would be for such a person, but is it important for a diagnosis to be made even if they have gone through the stages of life? Or is it a gone case when you're in your 20s and you have just found your way through the systems and now you're being told you have autism? How does that work?
Okay, for me, I believe it's good to have the diagnosis because you definitely know there's something wrong.
Yes.
When it comes to your interaction, you are facing a difficulty. When it comes to how you relate, for people with autism, even some clothes are uncomfortable. So you're struggling with your life, you really don't get what is happening. So getting to know that this is the issue and that's why I'm struggling, becomes much better, and you get to know, yes, you've been able to deal with the difficulties that you're facing, but at least getting to know why I've been going through this makes it even easier. Yeah, it gives you
and
some
perhaps
closure.
Do adults also have measures, that treatment forms that they can actually help, that can help them live better lives as they, even though they're already grown up?
Okay, at the moment, not really. Because autism doesn't have a cause as fast. So we cannot really pinpoint and say this is what the adult is supposed to do. Because every autistic, whether it's speech therapy, everything is therapy. We have speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavior therapy. It's therapeutic. How to deal with autism, it's generally therapeutic. So you cannot really say that as an adult, not unless they're struggling with behavior or certain communicational skills, then they get the therapy under speech or under behavior.
Okay. Now, speaking of people, high-functioning people living with autism, we have our beauty queens in the studio. Miss Kelly Kinuthia, right? You held the title in 2018, and then your sister here is holding it right now with a beautiful crown. Now, could you tell me what your experience has been with regards to autism?
Well, I was crowned in 2018.
2018?
Around April 20th, and for autism, I have learned to learn a lot, because it was not a thing I knew about way before.
Okay.
So I had to do a lot of research and really understanding it, because it's until you understand that you get to relate with the people living with autism. So I had to research a lot and learn a lot, and also through the help of some of our friends, like the therapist is my friend. We also had a seminar so that you can understand the spectrum in really broad perspective.
So in your experience, do you have a hands-on approach with working with people living with autism, and what has come out, especially in Kenya, with regards to kids living with autism? What have you seen perhaps with the challenges that they face?
Well, the challenges they face, first of all, I'll say, is people are really putting them behind closed doors. Because what is lacking is acceptance. People are failing to accept that their children are living with autism, and it's until you accept that your child is living with autism, that's when you start to discover their strengths and also enable their weaknesses. So acceptance is really lacking in Kenya, because some of the communities think that it's a misfit, or it's a spell that is cast upon them, and so it becomes really hard to embrace who their kids are. But you find that these are just people who are differently abled, and these are people who have their own strengths that will bring a change even in our society. So acceptance is really lacking.
Acceptance is lacking. And let's say perhaps with the medical facilities and access to help, professional help, that perhaps the special needs consultant Faith Nyaboge might be able to offer, have you seen a disparity with regards to how they can actually access this kind of help?
Yes. So for the people who helped us and who gave us a platform to advocate for autism, that is Step Up for Autism and also Ready Aiders Foundation, they work together to ensure that there is awareness, and they also provide free therapy services for children living with autism or other individuals living with autism. So basically they have a center in Mathare where they ensure that the kids are undergoing therapy, and it's totally free. So with that, it has helped people to even come out and be able to even access the therapy services, because clearly they're so expensive out here. People are really charging high amount of figures for autism therapy.
And what about the schools? Are our schools equipped to deal with kids who have autism? Are our teachers even aware of how to deal with a kid who has autism? I'll pose that question to you, because I can see you shaking your head vehemently.
We are really struggling in that area, because basically I've shadow taught. I actually do home-based therapy, because in a school setup, yes, there's this idea that they know that maybe a child has autism, but because of the behaviors that they exhibit, somebody doesn't know how to deal with a child. This is a teacher who is maybe dealing with around 20-30 students, and this is somebody who needs extra help. So the teacher doesn't really know how to handle this child as at that time, because you find the child becomes destructive. We need accommodative services. For example, there has to be a silent room, maybe the dark room. The lighting could be an issue because of sensory issues. Color. This is a day you can get into class, you're wearing a color that doesn't suit the child.
The child, they
so you
do
not know that color is maybe triggering a certain episode.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of disparity. When it comes to the medical sector, the therapy, it's really expensive.
Yeah.
I told you I do home-based. You'll get to, for me, the reason I do home-based is I'm like, a parent doesn't need you full-time. If I do it, I show you how to do it today.
Yes.
Tomorrow when I'm not there, at least you can continue. If you bring them to the center, it's once or maybe twice, and many children come in, so you cannot be able to give them full attention. So when you go home, it's an individual, one child. You train everybody in that home setup how to deal with it. For example, there are cases of problematic behavior, like let's say head banging.
Head banging, to hurt
when
they're agitated.
when they're agitated. When head banging has to be triggered by something. For example, maybe they wanted something and they were not able to be given, or they could be, maybe he or she has a headache. But nobody really understands what is the underlying reasons.
Right.
So for a behavioral analyst, you will get to know what is the antecedent, what is the cause of this behavior. For example, let's say he or she was trying to read something or get something and he was not able. Once you've been able to notice that, you'll be like, the reason he's head banging is because he wants to get this. Something. So as a parent, the next time you see him trying to, or headed to, because they normally have a spot, they do it. So if you see him headed there, try and find out, was he trying to reach out for something? Was he trying to get something? Could there be an underlying reason? So you are able
for
to
a lot of patience and of course guidance from specialists, but then we find that there aren't enough specialists going out there. I'll go to you, Peggy McJulian. Could you tell us, have you been able to work with people living with autism, and what has your experience been?
I'll say I've not been really working with people with autism, but I've at least gotten an experience.
Yes.
We once visited a school in Kasarani, Treeside. It has students with people living with autism and other disabilities. It takes a person to have patience for you to work with these people, because you have to understand them. It's not a thing of somebody's throwing tantrums and you just you're just discussing with that person, but it takes a person who is patient. We are
told that they are on a spectrum, so there are high functioning ones and people who are not really very high functioning. So have you seen that sort of range when you're visiting this particular school?
Yeah, there's some kids that they're so hyped. They're so hyped, they're here, they're there. These kids are so awesome. They're so awesome. I love them.
Okay. And Kelly, could you tell me, have you experienced this sort of spectrum, and have you gotten to interact with also parents, and have they told you their story or have they discovered this disorder in their kids?
Yes, I've been able to interact with children living with autism. During my reign, I was able to visit Kajiado, and we started a therapy project there. So what we'll do is basically we meet at this church in Kisamis village, and so children are brought by their parents, and so there they get to be assessed with the help of the Radiators Foundation and also Step Up for Autism. So you also get to realize that these parents are now encouraging one another. So when we were starting it, we got a few number of people, but as we continued with the therapy programs, people were like coming out in large numbers. And in every society, if I hear McJulian went to somewhere and she benefited from it, I'll also be like, oh yeah, let me go try. So we experienced a lot of maybe awareness, and people are now accepting it. We can say now that they're in a better position. Also, the parents for the children living with autism as well, they're now accepting it. They're like, let's find a solution. Let's find a way to make their lives better.
Right. Now I'll come back to you, Ms. Nyaboke. When it comes to schools, what can be done to help identify these kids, give them what they need, the kind of space, because we understand our teachers are overstretched. They're dealing with so many kids, and giving the particular attention that a kid with autism needs might be a tall order, and at the same time the parents might not be able to afford this kind of special needs. So how would a teacher actually be able to identify this child and also accommodate them, even though they are overwhelmed with the big numbers of children, especially in public schools?
Okay, recently we had the Pan-African Congress of Autism.
Yes.
That basically they advocating like diagnosis can be done as early as 6 months, because there are some things like imitation, facial structure, the way the child looks at the mother, the cooing, those are the things that somebody can help in identifying an issue. So in school setups, what's
also reading that when they avoid eye contact, that's another issue.
There is avoiding of eye contact,
yes, okay.
which is prevalent in most of the autistic people. So you'll find that in a school setup, I normally say, if specialists actually, for me, like I work with the Disability Center.
Right.
What we did is like on Tuesday we went to Shofco. It's in Madari. Yes. So what we did, we went to talk to mothers, because you know people don't. This is what we call the unseen disability.
Yes.
If people understand, if I don't have a hand, I know this is somebody with disability. Yeah. So this is something unseen. So by the time somebody is knowing that this child needs help, and this culture where like this child is different, he will grow at his own pace.
Yes.
Just give him time, or he's the firstborn, he's not interacted, has led to a lot of cases being diagnosed later.
Okay, because they assume that this child is just slow, but then there's a deeper issue underlying, and they don't want to rush them, but then as they keep waiting for him to catch up, the diagnosis goes undetected.
It goes undetected. So in a school setup, I would advise teachers actually, or even specialists, or if somebody has some knowledge, because at the moment behaviorist therapists, actually we only have one who is board certified, Kaijora Puja.
Wow.
We only have one
in the whole nation.
Yes.
Wow.
Actually in all of East Africa.
Wow.
Because we do not even have ABA offered as a course in the universities.
In the universities. And
even speech therapy is just offered in the master's level.
Wow.
So and it's only Kenyatta University that offers speech therapy. So there is a lot of, needs.
There's a problem.
There's a lot of problem in our country at the moment. Because we have very many people suffering behind us.
Yes. So how are we coping if we're only having one specialist for the whole entire East African region? So where are parents running to, even if they're open-minded and they've identified this, then where next? Where do they run to if you're not having programs in areas such as Madari? Let's say just a normal middle-class family. Where do they go for help?
Mostly they go to schools.
Yeah.
You're normally told that from assessment. That's why when you asked Kelly, is there a discrepancy between the health and, because after the diagnosis, a parent is told, look for a speech therapist or take your child to a special school. Okay. You're told your child has autism or any other disability. You've never heard of it.
Yes.
Lucky for the parent who is able even to research and get the information. There are those parents who do not know where to even run to. So at the moment we have Gertrude's. That is where most people go to Gertrude's Hospital, the Children's Hospital.
But clearly not everyone can afford
everybody can afford it. So that is where our organization actually basically comes in. We normally do it home-based. We go to our homes, to somebody's home, train the parent. You just talk to the parents. At least they need somebody to even understand them. So we go home, give the information to the parent, not only them, because immediately the parent has a child with autism, the society now starts alienating you.
Yes.
Because they're like, you either did not treat your child right, or you're not doing something right.
Yeah, they blame the parent.
Yeah, they blame the parents, and in most cases it's the mother who is even left with the child.
It should be, I would like to insist that there's no known cause for autism. So it's not the parents or anybody who causes this disorder in the kid. It just happens, and we haven't identified what causes it. Previously, there was this assertion that vaccines are the cause of autism. Could you dispel that? Because I understand this was written off as a cause.
It was written off. Actually, it was insisted during the Pan-African Congress.
Yes.
A lot of extensive research has been done. For me, I actually also disagreed with it. I was like, if it's the vaccine, that every child should be having autism.
All of us should be having
autism. At the moment, they have what we call the risk factors, the prevalent, the things that could be leading to autism. For example, the postnatal and the prenatal obstetric issues risks. We have the age limits of the fathers. We have the toxins of the environment, pollution. We have, those are the things that we call the risk factors. Maybe that could be leading.
The causes, but it hasn't been determined.
It hasn't been determined.
The causes, yes.
Yeah.
Now I'll go to you, Miss McJulian, could you explain to what plans do you have now that you're the reigning queen, Miss Autism Kenya for 2019? What are the plans that you have in spreading the news and enlightening the public? Because when she tells us that you identify somebody and you go to their home, but some people, we might not be able to identify them and they have to be the ones to come out. So how are we spreading the word on autism?
The plans that I have as the reigning miss,
yes,
first is to put awareness to people about autism.
Yes.
Autism is a condition and no condition is permanent. Autism is not a tragedy.
Yes.
Ignorance is the tragedy.
Okay.
So that is the first thing that I'm planning to do, to put awareness to people. The second thing, I'm planning to start a program in campuses, just to enlighten these students. You get like, I'm a student at St. Paul's and I'm doing journalism. And I, as a journalist, I wasn't aware of what autism is. So you can imagine
that.
I'm a Mamboga somewhere who was a kid with autism. So we just, I just want to start a program in campus that at least you can enlighten these students, so that when they see someone with certain symptoms, they can identify at least this autism, and we were taught on how to handle
the disorder. And you handed it over to her, but still I want to imagine you're still actually engaged in working with people with autism. So what are the plans in terms of enlightening the public and helping people living with autism?
Okay, first of all, I'll still continue doing whatever I do, because clearly even on my social media pages, I always advocate for autism. It's all about autism. And even when I was newly crowned, I really had to like talk to my friends as well. They never knew what autism was.
Is,
but just because I was Miss Autism, they wanted to know, what's autism meaning? So from that, I can say I have tried to like run a campaign on that, on really making people aware. And it starts with you telling a friend telling another friend, and that's how information is passed on. And so I'll also support the incoming Miss McJulian and Peggy will work together.
Okay, back to you, Miss Nyaboke. And now, speaking of people being on various levels of the spectrum, you have told us that people living with autism can just be normal, high functioning or members of the public if they're taken care of. So could you give us an example of somebody you have worked with that has come out to be just a normal part of society without it being too obvious that they have been defeated by autism, or them having no way of living a normal life?
I haven't worked with an adult with autism. That is a challenge, but there is Ms. Atypical, who was crowned with Ms. Peggy. She's Sarah Bosibori. She's someone living with autism, doing and handling her life. Basically, you will not, if you see her walking, you will not be like, she has autism. No. So that is one person that I have really, as an adult, that I have related with, who has autism. But in most cases, these cases, you hear them from the teenage ages going downwards. That is when people speak about it. But going back, this information was not there. These are people who will see roaming in the streets, and we are calling them Wandawazimu. Which is very wrong, because these are people who could be helped at a certain level. Looking back, even the employment sectors doesn't employ somebody with autism, because they're like, how do I deal with somebody with autism? The only person that I've known who is an corporate is Safaricom, that has somebody with autism in their organization. The employers do not know, what am I supposed to do? How am I going to
cater to their needs? So what would you say to employers or the government? Because you have shown what you've said about one specialist for East Africa, that is really, it is a pity, basically. Because if in the US we are having 1 out of 59 kids having it, let's say probably it's the same, but we haven't identified these people living with it. So what needs to be improved upon in our society to ensure that these people are catered for and their disability is not something that makes it them unable to live normal lives?
Okay, the first thing I would be like, we need specialists. So the education system of Kenya has to find a way to introduce these courses into the country. Because, for example, for me, I have applied. I'm waiting for the acceptance to do a BCBA course. And you need hours, you need a supervisor, you need all these things, and it's only one person that we have. So who is going to be able to give us the hours? Who is going to be able to monitor all this stuff? So these courses have to be introduced into our country. ABA, speech therapy. We only have occupational therapy. That is basically done.
Literally in every hospital.
In every hospital, and physiotherapy. But we need ABA, which is the most actually evidence-based way of handling autism, because you have to identify in autism we say the problematic behaviors is more prevalent, like this self-harming, this social misfits and all these things.
Wanting contact with their friends,
wanting contact, introduce, how do I relate to somebody, how do I say hi, how do I, in as much as looking at somebody gives me a discomfort, but how am I able to relate with this person? How will I be able to know that this person is hurting and even be able to say sorry? Because you will find there was a child I knew back in 2016. He was a teen actually. His mom had passed on, but he was laughing. So everybody was like, look at this child. He's not even mourning the mom and everything. But for me, I understood this is somebody with autism. He's not relating with what is happening at that moment. We have cases whereby you find a child pushes another child in a school setup, for example, a child with autism. Then the other parent, who doesn't understand what is going on, goes back to school, quarrels the school. Oh, this child has been biting on my child, and this. I need this child pushed or taken away from this school, punished, or I'll pull away my child. So the school is like, now who am I supposed to handle? So you find these cases is even spread on social media. They just say, oh, this school, this child has done this and this and this, and the administration is not even handling it. So there's lack of information outside there. So if the county governments can even have projects, even for mothers, to be able to be taught or to be able to know how to identify, to be trained on the basic things to look at, even to just the first therapist is normally the parent. Even the speech therapist, these are the third parties. The first therapist is the parent. If they are able to have the information, this is how I'm supposed to handle my child because of this is the nutrition I'm supposed to give my child because of maybe hyperactivity. We do not have, even getting a nutritionist to write the diet itself is around 4,000.
That is another thing I wanted to talk about. Tell me about the diet. How does diet actually affect a person or a child living with autism?
It's not really that it affects per se, but it triggers some behaviors. For example, sugars, which is sugars and wheat.
For a normal kid with a sugar rush, they're difficult to handle. So you can imagine a child with autism, how it would actually affect them.
It affects them. So that's why you will find you normally told reduce the sugars, reduce the wheat. It's not like it causes the autism itself. That is where the misconception comes in.
It's a trigger.
It's just a trigger to a certain problematic behavior or hyperactivityness. Because autism comes with sometimes with other conditions. It can come with epilepsy, it can come with ADHD, it can come with mental issues, depression, it comes with convulsions. There are lots of things that come with autism. So when you normally advise as a parent, please avoid this, avoid this. It's not like it's the reason your child has autism. No, it's just to avoid the triggers, the excessive triggers that can lead to self-harming behaviors. So the wheat itself gives you a lot of energy. So this energy that they do not know where to put it into, they now fight or they now push
and bite and all that. And for example, we have a lot of, you talked about lights. We have so many gadgets nowadays. We have our phones, we have our televisions, our fluorescent lightings. Does this actually affect a child living with autism?
It does. It does. In most cases, if parents can even bear witness with me, some children will put on the TV with a certain volume. Immediately he does this or does this. Closing, because there is a lot that is to show that there is something that is affected, or you see them flickering, or they now start getting agitated because of the lights. That's why I said, I don't know of any school that there are very few schools that have dark rooms for sensory issues, because there are those, even the floor itself is itchy. They just feel it like itchiness. There's an itchiness. You find them just stamping their feet and jumping up and down, and nobody really, they're like, this child likes behaving that, but it's something that has to do with sensory. The biting also comes due to something that it's either sensory, it's a sensory issue at the end of the day. They could be feeling something is maybe itchy in their teeth or something, but since we don't know,
they're hypersensitive.
Very high. Some of them are very hypersensitive, even to clothing. Some cannot wear nylon clothing or a certain color. I have a girl who would be like, every single day when you're going home, I have to their home, I have to wear something bright. If I wear something dull, she's
not
bye.
into it. Oh my
Immediately
goodness.
she just say bye. She knows how to say bye, so she'll be like bye.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.
I'm not into it.
And that is it.
Yeah.
There's nothing you're going to do. So it's fun in a way.
Now, when we're talking about access to information, McJulian, can we advise kids or parents or loved ones surrounding these people to go online or find online resources? You did talk about the foundation you work with. Could you tell us more? Do they have an online platform whereby we can find information that helps us deal with our sisters and brothers suffering autism?
Yeah, it has an online platform. I'd also encourage the parents living with autistic children to just go online to see how autistic children can be handled. You just don't handle them like any other kid. These are special and talented differently from us neurotypicals.
Right.
So Ready Aiders, we have a platform, Light Mr. and Miss Autism, where you can get information about autism.
Now, Kelly, would you actually support parents, loved ones going online to feed their own need for knowledge when it comes to dealing with people with autism? And what are some of the platforms that you would suggest? We're having even movies and series being made. There's one called Atypical on Netflix. It's all about autism and a family catering to a boy with autism. So do you encourage, because we can't just sit and wait for knowledge to find us if we are suspecting our kid has this. So what's your take on that?
Well, I support that because it's until when you come out there that people will know what you've been going through and will actually help you. But then again, I'll advise them to be really cautious about who they go to talk to, because not everyone is for them, not everyone is supporting this cause. So basically they can get to our platforms, Ready Aiders Foundation on Instagram, Facebook, Step Up for Autism on Instagram, Facebook, and even on our individual pages. Kelly Kinothia on Instagram, Kelly Kinothia on Facebook. It's I'll say let them limit it to people who can actually
who are associated with organizations that are working towards helping people with autism. So I want you to give one last word to the people watching at home about autism, and what message would you like to be out there with regards to this disorder?
Okay, I'll say awareness starts with you, acceptance starts with you. It's how you treat that child who's living with autism that will make other people embrace him or her in a certain way. So if you show them compassion, then other people will definitely take your lead. Also, the parents who are living with children living with autism, let them know that these children have their special abilities. Let them invest more in enabling them to do things that they are able to do, that rather than hiding them and maybe pushing them down and they're trying to come up. Also, to our government, let the government support these initiatives. There are people out here who are trying to help other people, because you rise by lifting others up. So we are out here trying to help people, but also we'd like to seek the government to also help us in such forums, because it's through that we'll be able to even run a national campaign. It will no longer be something that is seen as a spell cast on someone,
or a witchcraft or some sort of supernatural problem that we cannot actually manage. Now over to you, Peggy. Tell your fans what you want them to know about autism.
What I'd love them to know about autism, that autism is not a tragedy.
It's not a tragedy,
Ignorance is the tragedy. And I'd really like to thank Mheshimiwa Mbatia. He's doing a great job in Buruburuan Primary. At least he's starting to set some classes apart from these special kids. So I'd like to encourage also the government to at least in every county in the public schools to at least set 2 classes aside for these autistic kids in every county, because it's not only in Nairobi, it's in Kenya.
But for that to happen, we need actually to address the education of teachers, and as well as finding specialists to care for these kids, even if they're in their own separate section of the school. Now back to you, Ms. Nyaboke. What would you like the public to know about autism and how to handle the disorder?
Basically, first thing first, there is no cause.
There's no cause.
So stop blaming parents. Stop saying that they have bad parenting skills. So stop it. That is the first thing I would tell the public. Secondly, early intervention is key. If you suspect that there is an issue, no matter how minimal it is. I'd rather you be told there's nothing wrong rather than waiting later you told something is wrong.
So just for emphasis sake, what are the things they should look out for? Just to make sure whoever is listening at home and might be suspecting their kid is being affected by this, what should they look out for?
First, look at the definition itself of autism. It's a neurological disorder that affects the social skills and the communication skills. So look at how your child's social skill is at. Are they a child who is obsessive in maybe a certain type of play? And that is obsessing they can't share.
Yes.
Or they are obsessed with one thing they play the whole day. Is your child repetitive? Like if you maybe distort something in your house, does it affect them in one or another, or they just have to make sure that that thing is where it was supposed to be? Thirdly, how does he or she communicate? In most cases, for somebody even to get the diagnosis, the first thing the parent will tell you, hajaongea for a very long time. He's not been talking. So that is the most common thing that parents look at, the non-verbal aspect. They don't even suspect that there could be other reasons. Later is when they are able to tell you, I see he doesn't even like sharing his toy, or he doesn't do this. Look at also the sensory issues. In most cases, you'll find these who are obsessed maybe with a certain color, a certain pattern of sleep. Some of them lack sleep. A whole day the child will not be able to sleep. So you'll be thinking that is a nature, but there could be an underlying issue. Does your child stare at one position for a very long time? Just staring, you're like, maybe he's not, or something, you try calling him Amezuba, Amezuba. No, there is a certain level of kuzuba, but look at it, it will tell you that there's something wrong, the duration itself or the frequency. Also look at how he behaves in an awkward setup. For example, in a public place. Does he find noise something irritative? Does he find color or too many people something that he cannot cope with? So such things, don't be like, my child has been enclosed for a very long time. Then that's why that could be the reason. I would advise also parents, please do not put them indoors. You are worried. In most the first worry the parent is like, when my child becomes an adult, how is he able to interact with the society? I always tell them, put them out into this society so that they can see. Let them be hurt. Let people look at them awkwardly. Let them be judged. Let them be judged so that they know this is what they are going to. The society is very judgmental, and as a mother, I know you will always want to protect your child. Nobody to even say one thing or the other. I always say, if somebody talks or looks at you awkwardly, use it as a session to educate these parents. Be like, have you ever heard of something called autism? This and this and this is what is exhibited. You've helped one parent. The government also has to introduce education system that will help. The CBC at the moment is something people are fighting over, but it's one thing that would help people with special needs.
And on that insightful note, we wrap up Your Health here on Morning Express, and we did ask you your take on that controversial budget issue that has been being discussed throughout the show, and we have some of you giving us some interesting views. We have Lupella Johnson saying, I wonder why most senators never agree with their governors. That is based on a story that was covered on the Standards based on Nandi County. And of course we have somebody else, Ronald Otieno Olo, saying we didn't question computer error then, and it's a continuation of that. We asked you, do you believe the controversial county budget are the result of a system error as asserted by the governors? And your views kept coming in, and we thank you for your contribution to that particular issue. And also I'd like to say a big thank you to our guests who came to the show to discuss the matter of autism. Michael?
Yes, and congratulations. I see we have Miss Autism Kenya 2018 and 2019. So thank you for carrying that crown. But time waits for no man. It's time for us to say goodbye. Thank you so very much for watching Morning Express and participating. Those of you that sent your tweets, those of you that have been watching, and we thank you for watching. Well, this time we say have yourselves a good day. Do take care of yourselves and each other. My name is Michael Gitonga.
And I'm Trix Ingado.